Hey guys, welcome back to Top 10 Nerd. So we're back at it again with a part 2 of our villains who became superheroes list. And while last time we stuck with some villains who became good for, well, good, this time we're being a little bit more lenient. Talking a little bit about the flip-floppers this time around, who can't quite figure out if they're good or if they're evil or if they just don't give a damn. They're just serving their own agendas. So let's jump in. And at number 10 is Venom. Venom first arrived on the scene when he hitched a ride to Earth via Peter Parker, with Peter thinking that he just got lucky scoring a new spider suit. Turns out the black suit was an alien symbiote. Over the years, Venom's become an anti-hero though, serving up his brand of justice in arcs like 1993's Venom Lethal Protector, Maximum Carnage, where he faces off against Carnage, obviously, whom he feels responsible for, and steering away from Eddie Brock here when he bonded with Flash Thompson, a celebrated military vet, becoming Agent Venom. Up next at number 9 is Quicksilver. Initially a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants with his twin sister Scarlet Witch, recruited by Magneto, he eventually bails on the team after Magneto and Toad are abducted by the Stranger. At this time, he and his sister go back to Europe, and are recruited to the Avengers. But then they go back and join sides with Magneto until they realize that he's actually a bit too evil, but then go good again, and well, you guys get the idea. Outside of the main continuity, this flip-floppiness occurs throughout other alternate universes too, including House of M, and technically Son of M. Talk about shades of grey. Up next, number 8 is the Punisher. Here we have a case of a character whose bad to goodness is a little ambiguous. So we all know the origin story. Frank Castle's family were murdered by the mob, and out of revenge he becomes a vigilante who employs the likes of murder, torture, kidnapping, extortion, you name it. And he murdered a ton of people over the decade that preceded that. The Italian Mafia, the Russian Mafia, the Yakuza, street gangs, muggers, rapists, the list goes on. So naturally he clashes with some heroes including Daredevil and Spider-Man, but would also occasionally become their ally. Despite the blurred lines, his mission has always been inherently good, even if the methods of his retribution speak otherwise. Up next, number 7 is Jason Todd. From a publication history standpoint, I can't blame Jason Todd for becoming a villain. In 1988, Dennis O'Neil convinced DC Comics president Jeanette Kahn to run a poll where readers would decide Jason's fate, that fate being whether he lived or died. And they chose to kill him off via the Joker in the Death of a Family arc. A lot of people hated them over it. There's a lot of hate mail. And even Frank Miller was like, guys, that was some ugly stuff you did there. Anyway, Jason came back in the Under the Hood arc as the new Red Hood. He wages a gang war, gets real obsessed with Tim Drake, and Batman ultimately defeats him. And flash forward quite a bit, the New 52 retcons the out of him. Whereas Red Hood, he's the leader of the Outlaws, and even a member of Batman Incorporated. And then there was another retcon with Rebirth, but I think we'll move on from here. There's a lot about Jason Todd's history here that we won't be able to touch on in one video. But hey, if you guys want a top 10 Jason Todd facts, let us know. Up next, number 6 is Angel. Getting into Buffy the Vampire Slayer here, Angel was previously known as Angelus back in the day, that day being the 18th century, where he was an Irishman turned into a vampire. He was known for being the most sadistic vamp in European history. He pissed off a clan of gypsies though, who then cursed him, giving him his soul back, and therefore tormenting him greatly for years until he crossed paths with Buffy, and found purpose again. And love in the second season, which then makes his soul get taken away from him again because the curse breaks, and then he goes on a disastrous spree returning to his murderous roots. Rest in peace, Miss Calendar. But luckily Willow saves the day, figuring out how to return his soul with a little bit of magic. And floppy disks, of course. And his soul returns, but Buffy and Angel are never really the same again, prompting him to eventually leave Sunnydale for LA, thus starting his own spin-off show in 1999. Up next, number 5 is the Scarlet Witch. Well, I kinda gave you guys the initial back and forth breakdown in her brother's number, and while the two are generally always on the same side, Scarlet Witch tends to be a bit of a go-to for whenever Marvel wants to mess reality up. So Wanda tends to use her reality warping abilities with decent but selfish intentions, usually having catastrophic effects. House of M, for example. She does end up reverting things back to normal though, so yay. In at number 4 is Galactus. Galactus was originally created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to act as an antagonist that would break the supervillain mold. They felt the need to top themselves by creating an evil doer who had godlike powers. After a super adorable encounter with Squirrel Girl and an encounter with the Ultimates where they took his birthing chamber and combined it with ISO 8, Galactus went from Devourer of Worlds to the Lifebringer. He doesn't want to eat planets, he wants to bring life to them. And he does, starting with the first planet he had ever devoured. From here on out, he's then forcibly transformed back to the Devourer of Worlds, and then again as Lifebringer. Good ol' flip-flop. But hey, Galactus is growing on me these days, so maybe that's something. And at number 3 is Harley Quinn. During the New 52, Harley got a bit of a life makeover. After a stint with the Suicide Squad and a relapse with the Joker, she got her own ongoing series penned by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti. And while we won't talk about the controversy of the Break Into Comics contest with Harley Quinn, needless to say, the series made an impact, making Harley into an anti-hero. She ends up creating a crime-fighting team made up of young women and one gay guy, and even agrees to help a woman whose daughter was kidnapped by a Hollywood gang. In Rebirth, she's been made the leader of the Suicide Squad, along with still maintaining her own solo series, which is pretty neat considering her comic has shipped more comics than any other DC Rebirth title so far since 2016. And at number 2 is Magneto. So getting a little flip-floppy here, since Magneto generally is classified as a supervillain, one of the greatest of all time according to some lists, but at times, he's also an anti-hero, aligning himself with the X-Men during certain times of need. His ideologies about mutants and the human species do put him on a bit more of a sinister plane, yet it's all rooting out of a desire to help mutants rather than the more selfish ambitions of other villains. Sometimes terrorist, sometimes revolutionary, it's a bit hard to pinpoint Magneto as just a bad guy. He's just more ambiguous than that, which is what makes him one of the more complex and dynamic characters in comic book history. And finally, at number 1 is Deadpool. While Wade Wilson has always been lovable, he started off his masked career as an assassin, hired to go after the good guys. In his first appearance, he's hired by Tolliver to attack Cable and the New Mutants. He was well received, and became a recurring character in the X-Force before getting his own miniseries, penned by Mark Waid, who would later go on to say, I quote, "Frankly, if I had known Deadpool was such a creep when I agreed to write the miniseries, I wouldn't have done it. Someone who hasn't paid for their crimes presents a problem for me." Well, apparently not to the fans though, since the Merc with a Mouth has become one of the most beloved comic book characters in all of history, or at least for our generation. Alright, there we have it guys. Who's your favorite villain to hero story? Let us know in those comments below. And as always, make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons if you dug this video. But for now, I'm Kelly Pally for Top 10 Nerd, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.